We've talked a decent amount about the impact of Box v Blacks at Twickenham, and this is another angle. Really thinking about the psychology of code, or what happens up in the mental regions, understanding that sport and top-line sport, where talent is approximate to other talent, it's what transpires in other areas that often separates the sides. And I decided on this angle, and then I saw a headline on the New Zealand Herald website about the All Blacks being rattled after the contest. And as a Kiwi, I don't really like the narrative that is forming, even the idea that is forming around that reality, understanding how thinking and thought patterns lead to potential effects, and seeing where this can project. Obviously, if you're outside of All Blacks rugby, then you're probably feeling, well, maybe a little bit delighted by the impact that Twickenham can have on the All Blacks. And if any area has struggled or has impacted and caused struggle within an All Blacks playing game, it probably hasn't been due to talent. You could talk about game plan, maybe some personnel, but it's been the mental game which has separated the All Blacks from being able to take that step, what has amounted to a great chasm between what has been Test rugby normally for them and what has been Rugby World Cup Test rugby. And so the psychology of code, the impact that the Twickenham clash can potentially have on this All Blacks side, is something that I find fascinating. It's something that I guess we can respect and elevate the South African psyche, and how that embraces the tension, how it embraces the challenge of Test match rugby, and how it's able to engage in such a way where the tougher and the tighter, the harder, the hotter, it tends to elevate what comes out. And in my own journey in a media context, especially you'd say in a blogging, when I was blogging a lot more, and even through Backing Black, the difference between players and their mental game even came out when you discussed and when you interviewed or spent some time with them. And two players in particular, one Charles Peartow, the other Conrad Smith. What stood out in terms of, especially Charles Peartow, when I interviewed him and he was just coming onto the scene, was the clarity and the sober reality. And there was just a different, he was just different. He was built differently in terms of his mental game. And you could see in how he carried himself and what flowed as a result. And that's about actions actually speaking louder than words. We have a family friend who's a psychologist who deals with pain. And really it's about tactics. It's about having the tactics to be able to engage in difficult situations and being able to find a way through, and having a proven way through. Now, if you know a bit about the All Blacks narrative, you'll understand what transpired through 2011, which was like, you could say, the final step in this sort of World Cup odyssey. And part of that was the ability to refocus themselves. The players, if they went into one area, then to have a trigger that encouraged them to be able to like get back into the play, get back into the focus. And so as I think about what transpired at Twickenham, as I look at and see what's happened and the commentary that's coming out after it, as I even sense and grasp through my own journey with All Blacks rugby over a long period, I think this is the most significant area for the All Blacks moving into the Rugby World Cup. And the priority on the leaders, both in the coaching area, but also those on the field, setting the standard and affirming and getting themselves into a place where they grasp really the nature of the beast. Because the greatest defeat from Twickenham is not what happened on the field. I mean, there are certain factors that encourage that. So you can even argue or convince yourself about those various details. It's actually what will transpire after the fact. And if the All Blacks allow the various details to begin to fester and to begin to take root and begin to cause a fundamental foundational breakdown in who they are as people and who they are as a rugby team. And so that requires strong and clear thinking. It's a challenge. When we all understand the challenges of life, we all face things that stretch our capacity and our ability. When we hear about imposter syndrome or ideas that affect where people enter stages or environments they don't actually feel like they are equipped or qualified. The fake it until you make it type mentality, that can be a way of sort of admitting this is going on without succumbing to its influence. And so whatever it means for this All Black side, if it's just the consequences of dealing once you're ground and once the earth beneath your playing feet has been shaken, then that's understandable. It will take time to be able to work through it. But I think the genius of the individual and the team is to be able to put yourself into a certain reality where you're not defined by what goes on. In one sense, you're defined by the values, by the systems, by the culture, by the personnel, by the aspiration that is informing who you are. And because of these outside factors, ultimate factors that are much more definitional than the passing of a rugby contest, when that goes, these things stay and you in fact grow, because all that the challenges have done have encouraged you to become clarified in who you are. And so this is a test for the All Blacks of who they are. Who is this All Blacks team? Are they what the aspiration and legacy contend of being a different beast? Or have they just been faking it until they thought they'd made it, and what Twickenham has done is expose them as frauds? Because the test and the revealing of that state is coming. It's coming in a matter of weeks. And so that's awesome, isn't it? Awesome and awful in the same token. I read of a contact online talking about how the awful was often used as a positive description about something. We tend to use it in a negative, but it is awesome and awful maybe in both those senses for those who are watching, and fascinating. A laboratory on the human psyche, a laboratory on human culture, a laboratory on the ability of individuals to come together as a team and to deny, in one sense, what others may be saying about them, and to say, actually, we're going to prove in our practice what we truly and really are, where it counts, when it counts. And so the psychology of code, the psychology of what's transpired at Twickenham. It's the 80 minutes that can actually become not just a period of however many that is in seconds, but it can actually live on into a playing career's eternity. And so that as the player looks back and considers what happens at Rugby World Cup 2023, they're living in light of that one result. And that's true for all of us. It's true for them. It's true for the players. That will be a catalyst to something. Challenges in and of themselves don't definitively, don't axiomatically lead to certain results. It's how we handle them. What we do as a result. And whether or not we allow certain realities to define us, or we say, actually, this is who I am, these are my values, these are my goals, and I'm going to live in light of these factors. And that's why I was talking to he'll remain nameless, an ex-South African international, and it's no one I've had any media contact with, so don't, if you know my media history, don't speculate. It's no one that you will have an idea of. But they talked about the difference between, you could say, the exception and the delusion. Those who are different, those who are set apart, those who don't walk to the beat of a specific drum, they're different. And the reason we can say they're different and positively different is because, in one sense, reality follows closely from what makes them different. And they inhabit a certain different space. The delusion, in one sense, inhabit that space, but reality doesn't follow in their footsteps. And so the psychology of the code for the All Blacks after Twickenham, after Box v Blacks, are they different? Are they just built different, and therefore their psychology will follow that, their way they play will follow that because their psychology is different? Or is this team will it be proven to have delusional dreams that in the end will become nightmares that will live with them forever? And for those who are finishing their All Blacks career, it will be something that they will never forget. And as we speak about these things, it can sound so deep and foreboding, can't it? But when we strip away all the vernacular, when we strip away or the chat or the talk or the rhetoric, and you're standing on the fields of green, and it is game day, everything else has been taken away, and it's about you turning up and performing. That's what's going to define the commentary that flows. The commentary today is not necessarily the commentary of the future. The commentary of today has been defined by what people have interpreted in light of what happened at Twickenham. There are plenty of other games the All Blacks have played this year. If you allow that to be the one that is going to be the difference maker, then in one sense you're showing an ability or a lack thereof, and you're succumbing to the moment instead of having a much stronger, firmer foundation that's built on belief, that's built on proven capacity, that's built on a given aspiration, and that is sure that no matter what transpires on a given day, that it can stand the test of time. Rugby World Cup 2023 will test every player's psychology, whether or not they're true believers in themselves, in their team, on their nation, and for and to the outcomes that have been talked about. That makes it not only a wonderful sporting time for us, fans who are watching all around the world, but also a stage, a laboratory, a testing ground for the very foundations that we all must incorporate into our life and times to flourish and to reach some of the goals that we all have, no matter where we're placed. Rugby is just something that's popular. It's just another area of life, and we all have the areas of life that, whether it be vocational or whether it be passion or whether it be dreams or whether it be desires, and those things flow through all manner of priorities of our lives, and how we engage those moments will be significant to the outcomes that follow. That's a fascinating and interesting part, not only of our own lives, but also of what's transpired with this All Black side. And as someone who has even got the black rims on, we want our side to rise to the challenge. And if anything that tested and set apart Richie McCaw wasn't his physical gifts, he wasn't the strongest, he wasn't the fastest, he wasn't the tallest, he wasn't whatever, I'd say it was his mental strength. It was his ability to, no matter what was before him, to prove through his actions that he could overcome. Hence the admiration, hence the celebration, hence the affirmation from those who watched him and were taken in by his playing ability, his playing genius, the character of the man to not only drive himself beyond, but also lead a collection and group to 2 Rugby World Cups after 2007. We know the photo, hands in the face. He talks about it not being as it was snapped, but someone got the moment, and therefore the still was there. If you will, that was his Twickenham moment, 2007. And he showed that as he came back, that 2007 does not define his career. In fact, 2007 actually set him up for everything that followed. And he's talked about that as well. It set the narrative up, the storyline, our lens for interpreting his career. because he came through challenge. And for all that this All Blacks team has been through COVID years or post 2019, for the challenges for Ian Foster, for the challenges of Sam Cane, they have the opportunity. And it's an opportunity. And if they can think about it in this way, as an opportunity to grasp with two hands, and it excites them and creates an anticipation and a sense of endeavour and adventure, combined with everything else, obviously, because it's not just a whimsical about whether or not if it feels good it's going to happen. But if they're able to put those things together and raise the William Webb Ellis Trophy, then the narrative of this period, even the narratives, because it's plural, both of them, of their careers as a coach and a player, will be crowned in the end with glory and with honour and with celebration, and will be talked about and lauded over and celebrated. The moment's coming. It's going to be a grand adventure, not only for this All Blacks team, but all those who have a similar desire and a similar realistic foothold on the summit that is before them. The psychology of code. What say you as you consider where this All Black side is presently placed? I know some, and it's very easy, will say they're cooked. Its proximity, its situation, its relativeness or relativity, or whatever word you want to use to encapsulate its distance to the Rugby World Cup, is such that it's a hurdle that's become a high jump, and they're from the land of hobbits. Some will say that. Some have said that. Others believe this will be the making. This will have removed any shutters, any tunnel vision, any sense that it's just a fait accompli. Where do you sit? Where do you stand? Where do you reside as you consider? Not only for the All Blacks, maybe for another team, and maybe even for your own self. What say you? I am Johnny King, with his very dark glasses on. Thank you for watching.